Welcome back to the next episode of the exercise application assignment. I'm your host, Graylin Moon. It is a day later than it should be for this assignment because I just missed it yesterday. I was working on other stuff. It is September 14th, 2023, and I'll just talk about what I did today at the gym. Today was heavy on traps and it was traps and triceps, a little bit of lat action. So we started out with a neutral wide grip. Like, it's not this neutral grip, it's the one that's a little bit wider. Lat pull down, very upright torso, stretching the lats, good contraction, nice and heavy. Then we moved on to the chest supported seated cable row. Now usually I do one set of that and then I do some barbell shrugs, but this time I opted just to do 2 sets of the cable rows, just to give a little bit of that mid and lower trap some more love. And then after that moved on to some barbell rows, just 1 set. Most of the stuff's 1 set unless I specify that it's 2. Progressing on that, I lowered the weight significantly in my barbell rows. I kind of like to do that in sort of a cycle, so like there's a different style of rowing between like super strict barbell rows and then barbell rows with a little bit of body English so you can get a little bit more stretch. I felt like doing really strict ones today, so it's a little bit less weight. I should probably, in my workout log, denote whether I do strict or, it's not cheat rows. It's not cheat rows, really. It's just rows with a slightly higher torso angle and a little bit more of this hip movement. I'm not, like, jerking the weight up, but, I'm getting a full range of motion and I'm controlling it pretty much. It's just different style. It's like a Yates style row versus like a strict barbell row. Then after that I hit triceps. I did my skull crushers. Skull crushers have been progressing pretty good. I'm really liking the dumbbell skull crushers. And then single arm tricep push downs. I'm definitely noticing some progress in my triceps maybe. Really all I'm trying to do is get them to look a lot bigger from the front, especially from this position, the crucifix type position. I want them to be big and hanging. I'm definitely bicep dominant, and I think that's just genetics from my dad because he's definitely very bicep dominant, but who knows, because I don't train biceps particularly hard, and they're just overpowering my triceps at the moment. And then I did some neck flexions to finish up because neck's a muscle too. Your sternocleidomastoid is a neck. I mean, is a muscle. So you should probably train it. If you're not training it, you're missing out. Let's see. So let's talk about what we talked about in lecture yesterday. Lecture was just a big review yesterday. He got Dr. Hyde. You're probably watching this. Dr. Hyde, you got a girl to go up there and trace everything from bioenergetics up to muscle tissue. And then we kind of just discussed it for a little bit. We went into some other stuff. It was mainly that was kind of like the focus of the class. There's a couple things. You said you did an excellent job, and if that's an excellent job, then I feel like I'm going to be pretty all right with it. Because I mean, I've got a good handle on this stuff. I need to understand things from the ground up and know all the little details. If there's a detail in the book, I need to know it. That's how I feel. Because it just increases my understanding. So, main thing he was talking about is the connection. The ATP that you create through bioenergetics is important because you need ATP to cycle the sodium potassium pump, and then you need ATP to separate the myosin head from actin during excitation contraction coupling, cross bridge cycling. So that's where ATP comes in. That's the whole purpose of bioenergetics. And we just talked about the different types of contractions again. It was mainly just a review day. I'm trying to think if we covered any new. I don't think we covered any new material. I'm gonna check my notes right quick just to see if we covered any new material. I mean, I take my notes before class, but sometimes if I look at it, it'll just help me realize, like, oh yeah, we did talk about this, Talked about EPSPs and IPSPs, yep. Like we went back over that. We haven't talked about the proprioceptors of muscles a lot. We did talk a lot about muscle fiber types, okay, and then this is where things got contentious with me, personally. We did talk about a little bit about exercise fatigue, how the limiting factor in fatigue can be hydrogen because it binds to troponin, and then it preferentially over calcium, and so then cross-bridge cycling can occur because the active sites aren't available for the myosin heads, and how inorganic phosphates and free radicals, mess things up. Why do they mess things up? They screw up the electron transport chain pumps. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. And the main limiting factor is running out of carbohydrates. That's the main thing for fatigue. Because if you're going to burn fats kind of burn in the flame of carbohydrates. Like, it still takes, like, lipases and junk to cut up free fatty acids through beta oxidation. Because you need what is it, NAD plus or NADH or something like that. To cut up the fatty acids, so you still need that sort of thing kind of rolling, because you get that from carbohydrates when the carbs get cycled through the Krebs cycle. You get all that NADH. So when you run out of carbs, that's where you're going to start getting fatigued. And then, yeah, we did talk a little bit about some of the biochemical properties of muscle. So like, really, a lot of the stuff goes hand in hand for that. So, how many mitochondria, how much blood supply, that's really all we talked about. We didn't really talk about myoglobin, but that kind of goes hand in hand with blood supply, because if you have more myoglobin is essentially just the oxygen shuttle for muscle. And then ATPase activity is really going to determine your twitch, whether it's slow or fast twitch, and if it's fast twitch, moderate or high, so A or X. Now, where it gets contentious is, Professor Hyde, if you're watching this, you misspoke and you doubled down instead of correcting yourself. Or maybe you just had a brain fart. I'm not mad at you, dog. But I was like, okay, maybe the book just says something different for some reason. Or maybe maybe he has a reason, for what he's saying, and he just didn't explain it all the way, and so I don't understand it. But then I watched one of your video lectures and you said the opposite thing. So I think you just misspoke, but you said aging and detraining increases your fast twitch muscles, and resistance training results in more slow twitch muscles, which to me, beep, 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 set off a red flag. I was like, that doesn't make sense. Because if you think about powerlifters, they talk about fast twitch athletes, athletes with a high degree of fast twitch muscle fibers. And you're saying that going through powerlifting training or, heavy resistance training would result in more conversion of fast twitch fibers into slow twitch fibers, or at least into the intermediate fibers between them, moving towards slow twitch. That doesn't make sense to me. And then the book disagreed with that, and then you in a video disagree with yourself. So I hope that's addressed next time I come to class. If not, I'm probably going to bring it up because that irks me. For whatever reason, that really, really irked me, because I was like, this doesn't make sense, but I'm not going to raise my hand until I get evidence. But yeah, aging and detraining results in in more slow twitch fibers, not fast twitch. Now, endurance training, if you train for endurance, that would result in more slow twitch fibers, which is fine. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because if I'm a marathon runner, I'm probably going to develop more slow twitch fibers. Most of my fast twitch fibers might start becoming those intermediates leaning towards slow twitch. Specific adaptations to impose demands type deal. Is there anything else besides that? I forgive you, Dr. Hyde. Unless I'm just completely wrong and I'm missing something absolutely crucial here, which is entirely possible, and I don't put myself past it. Let's see. Force regulation, yeah. Based on the size principle, the number and types of MUs recruited, you need a larger stimulus for a larger force of contraction to get more MUs recruited. Fast fibers also influence force production because you got to think fast fibers have more muscle protein in them. They have more of the active myosin. Force is governed by how many myosin heads are bound. And the force velocity curve, obviously your fastest movement, look how fast that was. I just hit my fingers on the table. Fastest movement cannot produce that much force comparatively. Like, I cannot move. A perfect example. Let's say I'm lat pulling down whatever weight at my working set, right? My working set of, what did I do today? It was like 90 pounds, really controlled. And to be fair, it was a lat pull down that had less pulleys. So that means it's closer to a real 90 pounds, but not quite. But, we're doing that. And then, but if I had like 5 pounds on there, I'd be able to go, I'm moving it a lot quicker. So, heavier stuff is slower to move. Makes sense. Initial length of muscle, we didn't talk about this, but I might go over it just a little bit. The initial length of the muscle at time of contraction, there is an optimal, length of muscle for producing a forceful contraction. That has to do with the overlap. There's an optimal amount of overlap. That is, you have a significant enough amount of shortening balanced with a significant enough amount of overlap between the myosin and the actin. Nature of neural stimulation. So that's talking about tetanus and making a smooth movement. Prior contractile activity. Talking about if you wear yourself out, you're probably not gonna be able to produce that much force. If you warm up, post-activation potentiation, you'll be able to warm up. But I'm getting into stuff that we haven't covered yet. We did talk about the force velocity curve, really. That about covers what we covered in lecture and whatnot. If I go into my later notes and then we cover that in lecture, I won't have anything to talk about new. So I'm gonna stop right there. I will see you in the next episode. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.